Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This is for UFC Vegas 79. I'm Paul Shaughnessy. Cody Saftic's on the line. Producer Megan is on the sticks. This episode of the Dogger Pass podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass podcast are brought to you by PrizePicks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. Cody Saftic and I watched the card together. I was super rough. I was at a wedding and I think I had like 30 drinks. I mean, I didn't keep actual count, but I was drinking for like 16 hours straight. At 2 drinks an hour, seems pretty doable. Probably crushed about 30 drinks. So I didn't have a sip of alcohol. I don't know if I was like a Debbie Downer when I was watching the fights with you, Cody, but I appreciate the welcome that you gave me.
Well, you don't got to drink alcohol to be a good time, so I don't know what you're talking about, Debbie Downer, but it was really good seeing you in Poggy Rob. So the parlays would have been so much better without that no contest and had Grasso been given that decision. But all the same, yeah, it was a good weekend. So hopefully we can do it together sometime in the very near future. But I know it was shitty circumstances for why you were in town, so we'll leave it at that. But now we're rolling into another 11 fight card and back at another one. Still in Las Vegas, only this time at the Apex.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we got Rafael Fiziev taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Fiziev, a minus 150 favorite. Gamrot can be had for plus 130. Cody, take it away.
Yeah, honestly, you'll probably be able to get like a live number like this sometime in the 4th or 5th round. Like this is a fight that I think you bet from a live betting perspective. Now, Fiziev definitely has the advantages striking, and Gamrot's definitely got the advantages on the ground. It's that like who's going to be able to put that game plan in motion. We'll start with Fiziev, right? So he's definitely one of the division's better strikers. If you just want to kickbox with this guy, he's got speed unlike any other. He moves extremely quick. He's got a beautiful step-in knee, hooks for days, and he's very crafty, high ring IQ. The thing is that everything he throws is fast twitch muscle, super explosive. So if he knocks you out in the first 2 rounds, which he's more than capable of doing, he doesn't have to rely on anything. It's if you can stretch him. If you can stretch him to those later rounds, he seems to fatigue. Now, he's got some bunch of fights that you can look at as good examples. His fight with Bobby Green, the longer the fight goes, Bobby Green's just throwing too much output, too much volume. In the 3rd round, Bobby Green outstrucks him like 64-44. You can see that Fiziev is slowing down. You can see that he's getting tired. And quite frankly, he got worked over the last the 2nd and 3rd round against Bobby Green. So it's a good example of the longer these fights go, that striking becomes less explosive, less powerful, and you can pick him up. The fight with Green's actually really close, but of course, they give the decision to Rafael. No problem. Again, it's just a good example that if you can stretch this guy later, you could have some success. His fight with Rafael dos Anjos. Now, this is the only fight in the UFC where he's had to go 5 rounds. I think it's the only fight in his MMA career he's had to go 5 rounds. He wins the first 3 rounds, although the first 2 rounds, they're not even the same league. In the 3rd round, he's slowing down, and Rafael's starting to get to the mark and have some more success. 4th round, Rafael finally breaks on through and takes Rafael Fiziev down. And once he takes him down, he wins the round. Again, this guy is a striker. His takedown defense is much improved, but at the end of the day, he is a striker. Once his back is on the mat, his get-up game is not incredible. His jiu-jitsu is not incredible. That's how you beat him. Thing with RDA is that he's 38 years old and he's a natural lightweight. Gamrot's 32 years old. He's probably just getting to the tail end of his prime, but still in his prime conceivably. And he's a massive guy for the division. So if he can go out there and take him down, he can have a lot of success. The thing is, going back to that fight, it's the 4th round. He ends up knocking out RDA in the 5th round for the record. But that's how you're going to beat him, is you need to take him into deeper waters and you need to hopefully get the takedowns going. And then obviously his last fight with Justin Gaethje in the 1st round, I was like, unbelievable. Justin Gaethje is considered a world-class striker, and Fiziev is straight up handing him lessons. In the 2nd round, it's like Fiziev's getting tired from backpedaling. Justin Gaethje's just a dog. And then the 3rd round, it's all Justin Gaethje. That's a really close fight. Depends how you score the 2nd round, I guess. 1st round, most definitely Rafael Fiziev. 3rd round, most definitely Justin Gaethje. 2nd round is that round where he starts to tire. But I think we can all agree, if there was 2 more rounds in that fight, Justin Gaethje takes him out. So I'm thinking 5 rounds is the key to this fight. Gamrot needs to get on him. He needs to shoot takedowns early. He needs to shoot takedowns often. The guy took down Arman Sarukian 6 times on 21 attempts. but he took him down 6 times over the course of 5 rounds. His fight with Beneil Dariush, that's like the one outlier. His cardio was awful in that fight, but he still took him down 4 times. You know, a world-class grappler can have some success there. He's a very, very agile fighter. His striking is okay. His technical boxing is all right, but how he's going to win this fight is getting that grind on and taking him down. The other thing is Gamrot's never been finished. He's never been knocked out. However, he's been knocked down in his last 3 fights, and he got dropped by Guram Kudlitz in his UFC debut. So he's been knocked down 4 times. The thing is that I'm still sold on his ability to go out there and take one hell of a punch. You've seen in his the fight with Arman Sarukian in the 4th round. It's a spinning back fist that drops him on the canvas. Like, what a hell of a shot. He pops back up and arguably steals the round back as much as you can for getting dropped. That's another fight that's close and contentious. But you see that him at his best, he can fight 5 rounds. He's big for the weight class. He can score the takedowns. He can grind on you. And against a pretty fighter like Fiziev, who's going to tire in 3-4-5 and slow down and give up takedowns, I think he's tailor-made for a dog shot, underdog win. The thing is because I know he's probably going to get his ass kicked early, I would much rather just hit this live at a bigger plus money price tag on Mateusz Gamrot. If anything, pre-fight flop, it's a bit scary because it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a war, but I think I'm leaning right now towards Gamrot. Now, I just talked about the negatives of Fiziev. So what are the negatives for Gamrot? Well, one, that he's been knocked down in his last 3 fights. So at some point, someone's going to break through and KO him. And maybe Rafael Zeev is that guy. The other thing is that, yeah, when his cardio is on, the guy can wrestle 5 rounds. He do it all day. He can one hell of a pace. The Beneil Dariush fight, he starts fast in that fight and then most definitely starts to slow down as it progresses. So, yeah, there's pros and cons to both guys. I just think it's going to be a very competitive, high-level fight and that I can get better plus money in the live betting market. But because this is a pick show where I have to make a pick, I'm leaning towards Gamrot. Oh, his super low volume. That's another issue for him. But again, he won the Sarukian fight. He got outstruck in every single round, all 5 rounds, and he still won the fight. So you need the judges to value ground control and takedowns more than they do damage. And I don't know what judges we're going to have for this fight, but judges are always terrible these days. So if this is a close competitive fight, then give me the guy with the plus money.
My problem right now is it feels like maybe I'm off base, but it feels like the judges are not rewarding takedowns.
Which judges? It's different every time.
That's partially true. I mean, generally it feels like they're not really rewarding takedowns whatsoever. It's like if you get a takedown, but you're not like landing ground and pound while you're down there. It kind of feels like I can't think of any fights right off the top of my head right here on the spot right now, but it's like we've seen it a bunch of decisions. Oh, I mean, Jocelyn, we fought on this show about, not that I want to bring it back up, but like the Jocelyn Edwards versus Cornhole fight. And they gave it to the great Cornholio.
You thought Jocelyn Edwards won.
Everybody thought Jocelyn Edwards won. Literally everybody except for you.
Everyone thought it was a robbery. No, everybody thought it was some grand robbery. I thought she won. I agree that Jocelyn Edwards won. I'm just saying it wasn't the worst decision of the year, which is what everybody made it out to be. Because everyone crushed that card other than that one fight, and everyone would have made infinite more money with that one fight. So they're extra bitter about that one fight. But yeah, dude, to that point, if those judges are sitting cage side, Gamrot losing because he'll probably land about 50 or 60 over the course of 25 minutes and have 6 takedowns, and they'll give it the other way. They'll go damage. They'll go power, they'll go volume, they'll go the bigger shots. You're right. If the judges from the Grasso fight, I don't know. It's all about moments. What's the big moment as comparison to the 3 minutes or the 3.5 minutes of being on your back? So, yeah, again, can you trust judges? No. Does this fight feel like it'll go to the judges? Well, Fiziev can knock out anybody. He can knock out a horse if he hit it clean. But yeah, I'm getting the impression that Gamrot is one of these tough, made out of iron Polish guys that's going to take whatever comes at him and then, grind on through to the other side. So likely it goes deep. And if it does go deep and it gets to one of those type of fights, I would think his wrestling is just going to allow him to get on top. But yeah, you could talk all day about this fight. The bottom line is either guy can win. Either guy can win for sure. Yeah. How do you get it? Yeah, okay. Well, let's just pass on it or move on to the next fight, I guess.
I just wanted to throw something into the mix. But my problem with his grappling is like he doesn't seem to do too much when he gets it to the mat. He gets a lot of takedowns, but he's not the greatest at holding people down. Fiziev has improved a lot in the takedown defense department. Like some of his sprawls, at least early in the fight, which you brought up, is like it's really hard to take him down early. So, I mean, if Fiziev's able to get a knockdown early, then you're already down. Like, you could be down 3 points after the first 2 rounds. You're in a pretty rough spot trying to get a decision from Gamrot down the stretch. I'm leaning ever so slightly to Fiziev, but I mean, I'm gonna wait for weigh-ins and all of that. It's not a fight that I feel like I need to get money on, to be perfectly honest, at this point in time.
Fair.
Moving on down the card, we got Bryce Mitchell taking on Dan Ige. Bryce Mitchell, a minus 200 favorite. Ige can be had for plus 170. Very, very kind of clean-cut type of fight here where, I mean, you got to imagine Bryce Mitchell's entirety of his game plan is going to be, seek these takedowns, take Dan Ige down. And that's where Dan Ige has struggled in the UFC. Guys that are able to kind of neutralize his game, like take him down to the mat. I know he trains with like a bunch of, killers, but it hasn't really translated to elite level takedown defense. People have been able to take him down. They have been able to control him. He's a great boxer. He's an absolute scrapper, incredible durability. Is Bryce going to be able to get the takedowns kind of whenever he wants? I'm kind of leaning towards yes. So I like Mitchell, but minus 200 is a little bit scary because, I mean, Dan does hit pretty hard, and yeah, Bryce has made some big improvements in his striking. We saw that. It's kind of like a lot of opponents, because they're so worried about the takedown, they eat some shots to the dome because they're guarding their hips and he goes up top. But it's probably not very you kind of think of the Topuria fight, and don't get me wrong, Topuria is an elite fighter. But that was super, super ugly. It's like if you can keep this kid on the feet, he can get beat up real bad. And he's got some sort of issue with some ex-girlfriend who's like stealing his crops or something. Did you see something like that floating around the internet recently?
Yeah.
There's always something. I mean, the guy drilled his own nuts off at one point. Bryce Mitchell is an absolute character. There's always something going on with him. But yeah, I think he's going to be able to get the takedowns and probably wins this fight by decision. So he's my pick. What about you?
Yeah, I think if you go in with logic is Bryce Mitchell by decision all day long. If you're going with narrative and what's happening behind the scenes, then yeah, Dan Ige is most definitely a live underdog pick. So we'll start with why Bryce Mitchell should make this thing look easy. Dude, yeah, him at his best, he's a big, strong, physical 145-pound fighter. And that is something that Dan Ige has always struggled with. You mentioned the takedowns, and they're all day. Movsar Evloev took him down 9 times. Whenever he wanted them, they were there. But if you want to go beyond that, he got taken down 3 times by Korean Zombie, and effortlessly taken down by Korean Zombie, who's not known for his wrestling at all. He's more of a stand and bang and go out on his shield kind of guy. Yeah, he's an excellent grappler, but I think there's been a lot of fights that have highlighted Dan Ige's inability to stop the takedown. I think he's rocking like a 58% takedown defense in the UFC. And again, other strikers like Calvin Kattar's taking him down. It's not the greatest look. So Bryce at his best, that's always what he's done. He's got one pro loss in his career, and that's against Ilia Topuria. And then outside of that, it's just been him taking guys down and dominating them at will. You saw what he did against Edson Barbosa, who's top notch. You've seen what he did against Andre Fialho, who spent the entire camp full of some of the best wrestlers in the game, and they can't stop him. So even though I'm kind of leaning towards he's done as a top contender in the UFC, but I'm trending towards his career is coming to an end in the near-ish future. But as of this fight right now, he's only 28 years old. So yeah, his body's still fresh-ish. He should be able to go and complete his takedowns. He's a lot stronger. He's a lot more physical. He lost the Topuria fight, looked awful. He said he had the flu. I kind of believe him because of how bad he looked. And he still managed to get one takedown over Topuria. So Bryce probably goes out there and rolls against Dan Ige, who always struggles when he takes on the upper echelon and always struggles when he takes on bigger, more physical, strong grapplers. So, yeah, why Bryce wins. And if Bryce does what he's capable of, minus 200, not a bad price tag at all. Now I go with the narrative, okay? So the narrative here is that, yeah, dude, the guy's a bit of a wild man. he living in Arkansas and he's running a farm and his girlfriend's stealing his crops and he's killing squirrels and eating squirrel and he's not at any of the major gyms. In fact, he runs his own camp, right? And there's tough, scrappy Arkansas kids out of that camp. A couple of them are pro fighters, but like his main training partner is his cousin AJ Cunningham, who just fought in the Contender Series a few weeks back and got murdered, right? So I like the Arkansas fighters. They've all got the heart, they've all got the scrap, but it's a lesser built regional scene. There's lesser talent in there, and for the facts are he's sparring with a lot of amateurs for this fight, right? And so you're not going to get better. 28, naturally getting better, physically getting better. I don't know that he's rounding off his game. Whereas Dan Ige, and you mentioned this, he's in Las Vegas with the best of the best, and he has been for a long time. He fights the best of the best. He hangs with the best of the best. And he's got legendary durability because the best of the best can't put this man away. He's got work ethic beyond measure. And Bryce doesn't exactly. So loses the fight to Topuria, and right away, first of all, he's talking about flat earth bullshit beforehand. Then he goes out and gets beat up by Topuria, and right away it's like, I had the flu and I was sick. Then he got booked against Movsar Evloev, and he pulled out with a back injury, right? That was 4 months ago.
The purple stuff on his neck in like the embedded leading up to that too.
And it's still there, dude.
Is it like still there?
It's still there. It's still there. We've got mutual friends on Facebook that train with him. So like I see his pictures come up all the time. And it's like he's going to the doctors and getting like an MRI on his shoulder. And I think they put the dye in so they can MRI it and see where the tear is. So he's got a bum shoulder. He has a bum back. He's really not training all that hard. He could make this look really easy, but the narrative side of it is he's not going to make this look easy. And he tried to stand with Topuria for the most part, which is a bad idea. If he tries to stand with Dan Ige's got much faster hands, much better technical boxing, and Bryce will land some kicks. Bryce will club him with a few overhand rights. Bryce drop Edson Barbosa with a clean shot. Like, he can throw. The thing is he's not going to win the striking exchanges for the whole fight. Mm-hmm. He will get chopped up. He will be at a speed disadvantage. He will be coming forward and getting countered a lot of the time. So if he doesn't shoot the takedowns, he's going to make this greasy on himself. If he shoots the takedowns, but they're half-hearted, kind of like the Topuria fight, where he hardly shot, and when he didn't commit it, he got a bad back and a bad shoulder. He might not be able to commit to the same what you're used to. Him at his best, easy. If he's not at his best, not that easy. So that's my internal struggle is when you say tape study suggests Bryce Mitchell wins the decision by a country mile. It's pull tape study out of that and add human nature into that. Ooh, I don't know. Could have a live underdog on our hands for Dan Ige. He's won his last 2 fights. His confidence is good. He's making improvements. Bryce has been off for a year. He's had a plethora of injuries. He's got a plethora of personal problems. And I just don't think he's at his best right now. So, it's not that long ago he lost to Brad Cantona, a 135-pounder on The Ultimate Fighter, right? His run has been Matt Sales, Bobby Moffett, Charles Rosa, Andre Fili, Edson Barbosa, nice win. But you can make arguments all day long that he's been spoon-fed, not spoon-fed, but has fought in way less competition than Dan Ige. Let's put it that way. So all those things scream Dan Ige live underdog, but like, I'm willing to give Bryce Mitchell the benefit of the doubt that I've met some fighters in my life that were batshit crazy and did not come into the fights prepared at all and put it on because they're fighters. And I know that's terrible reasoning, but like I think I'm just going to stick with Bryce Mitchell and go with the Mitchell by decision.
I mean, everything that you just said there is wanting me to act up and take like Dan Ige by KO, but I'm going to stick with the much more
KO, I don't know, but he could outpoint him, and Vegas loves him because he's a Vegas guy and who spends a lot of time in Vegas and has a lot of Vegas connections.
It's still Mitchell by decision for me. I just think the takedowns are gonna be just present, and if as long as he sticks to that game plan, he is quite good. The entries to the takedowns are super, super sharp. All of the injury and stuff, like it's not like a lock stock, This is a gimme fight for him at this point. Maybe like when he was on his rise, right after the Barbosa fight, he'd probably be considerably larger favorite here because, he was on the come up. Now we've got the Topuria loss. You're going to see all the highlights from that. And, a year off due to injury. there's question marks around him, and I suppose that's why the line is how it is. Anyway, let's move on. We got Marina Rodriguez taking on Michelle Waterson. Minus 300 for Rodriguez. Waterson-Gomez can be had for plus 250. What's your take here, bud?
Yeah, so the rematch that nobody really asked for, but I get it. So you've got Marina Rodriguez, who's a gatekeeper to the stars. You could throw her in there with the best girls in the division, and to some extent, she'll give them a go. Thing is, she's 36 years old and she's lost her last 2 fights. You got Michelle Waterson. She's a gatekeeper to the stars. She's been there. She done that. She's fought everybody in the division. Thing is, she's 37 years old and she's lost her last 3 fights. So both of them are not at that point. The UFC is not just going to throw somebody from the Contender Series in against them. They get paid fairly well and they're big names. But they've also fought everybody in the division before. So what do? One of them's near retiring. There's an argument both of them are near retiring. So I think you just pit them up against each other one more time, and the winner's going to go on and take another high profile or two, probably lose them, but will at least be able to be used in some high profile fights. And the loser is going to be on a 3 or 4 fight losing streak, depending on who comes out the outcome of this one. And it's likely it for them. So your best bet is just go back and watch the first fight. It was a main event, if you can believe that, 5-round fight. And Michelle Waterson, and I've always maintained this, she starts her career off at 105 pounds, right? And then at 105 pounds, she's world class, karate hottie. She's physical. She's got takedowns. She's got the karate. She's got some decent grappling. Jackson Wink at the time was the top gym. It's that nobody fights at 105. So she's had to move up to 115 pounds. She's had to move up to 125 pounds. She's largely been the smaller fighter her entire career. And whereas at one time she was a fantastic striker and still is a good striker, the older she's gotten, she's not willing to get hit. She's not willing to go through one of those wars where she gets her eyes swollen shut again, because she has, and she's been there and she's done that. But she's a mother of 2 now, and she's got other business ventures, and she's 37. So she relies heavily on her grappling and her wrestling, and it seems like even the fights that she's having her most success is when she can get the fight to the ground. The last time they fought, that was the narrative. Marina Rodriguez, probably more output, heavier strikes certainly, but has a questionable last takedown game. And for the record, Marina Rodriguez also has questionable cardio. So 5 rounds in wrestling would have favored Waterson. And the first 3 rounds of that fight, Marina Rodriguez just mostly sprawl and brawls her. Waterson doesn't really press the takedowns all that much. I think she only shot 4 takedowns in the whole fight. But for the most part, it's just like she can't break on through. Rodriguez is throwing up better combinations. I think Waterson gets the takedown in the 4th, wins the 4th. This fight's 3-1 going into the 5th. Waterson comes out to start the 5th. Her corner tells her, you're losing the fight. She knows she's losing the fight. She comes out hard to start the 5th round. But ultimately, the last 3 minutes of the 5th round is her unable to get onto the inside, getting hit from Marina Rodriguez at distance. So Rodriguez outstruck her like 125-88, won the first 3 rounds and the 5th round, won 2 49-46s and a 48-47. I scored at 49-46. I can't see this one playing out all that much more differently. Waterson, sure, she spent a lot of time on her grappling. She is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but over the last 2 years since that fight, I don't think she's made any noticeable progressions in any of those areas. If anything, as now she's turned 37 years old, the wrestling is probably at the same level, if not maybe a little bit worse. The Jiu-Jitsu is probably a little bit better, but without the wrestling to get it to the ground to use it, it doesn't really matter. Is she going to be able to suddenly throw up more volume than she was the last time? I don't believe so, possibly. But if you look at the trend of her last number of fights, probably not. And with Marina Rodriguez, yeah, again, she's coming off a 2-fight losing streak as well. But girls like Verna Jandiroba can take you down. And that's a problem. Michelle just wasn't able to do so. So had a slow start at it the last time. Again, if that was a 3-round fight the last time, it was 30-27s across the board. It was a 5-round, and it was 49-46 on 2 cards. So again, I hate to just be like, they fought before, it's going to be the same thing, but they didn't fight before. One was 25, one was 28, and you're rolling this back 2-3 years later. They fought before. They were kind of at that best version of themselves the last time they fought. The UFC saw fit to put them in a main event 5-round fight, and Rodriguez actually went on to have a couple more big wins after that. Since then, it's like, okay, there's that pullback. I don't think anything really changes from the first matchup. So I'm sure I'm using too many words on this fight at this point. So let's just go ahead and call it a Marina Rodriguez by decision.
Yeah, I'm not gonna really disagree with much of what you just said. The real thing is, yeah, it was back in 2021. It's not even 4 fights ago for Rodriguez. Like, it hasn't. What's really changed during that time? Not very much. You bring up all the good points. It's like Waterson, she likes to be able to wrestle, but she struggled with the size of Marina Rodriguez and really wasn't able to implement that game plan. Like, she tried in the early rounds. She got one in round 4, but, she was 1 for 5 on her takedowns over the course of a 5-round fight. Just wasn't really able to get it going. On PrizePicks, they got 70.5 significant strikes for Rodriguez. Through the first 3 rounds of their 5-round fight, she got to 78. So I'm leaning to the over significant strikes there. I mean, she did get 38 in round 3. You got to figure that, like, maybe you start a little bit of a faster pace in rounds 1, 2. Than you would in a 5-round fight where you're like, I have a bit of a history of gassing, and if we get into rounds, 4 and 5, I need to be around to maybe scoop up around there. So she had 78. I think over 70.5 is definitely doable for her again here, as long as she's not giving up takedowns, and we've seen it before. So, I like Rodriguez, but you know me, I'm never getting to a minus 300. The CF dot just tells me to pass in this situation, but I'll take a little sprinkle on some of my PrizePicks entries on Rodriguez over 70.5 significant strikes. We got Bryan Battle taking on AJ Fletcher. Bryan Battle is a minus 190 favor. Fletcher can be had for plus 165. I don't know how you don't pick Bryan Battle here. He's been making some pretty...
AJ Fletcher's your boy.
Yeah, he was my boy when he was like plus 250 against Matthew Semmelsberger. And like, I mean, I think we both played Lusa against him. He hasn't been my boy in a while. I guess Themba's a pretty low level opponent. Don't get me wrong there. But like Battle, outside of the Fakhratinov fight, where obviously he was exposed there, but Fakhratinov looks like a guy who's gonna like factor into like top 5, top 10 at the very least. Like that was a pretty massive. Like AJ Fletcher would absolutely get dusted by Rinat Fakhratinov from what we've seen from Rinat since he's entered the UFC as well. So I kind of throw that one right out the window. Yeah, I mean, I guess the volume's never quite there, but he's shown. I mean, Gabe Green had never been knocked out. Bryan Battle knocks him out super early in that fight. I get able to throw up 112 significant strikes against Trishan Gore. There's the volume is there on his side. It's like, what's Fletcher's real path to victory here? Because like I know he was able to use the wrestling against Matthew Semmelsberger a bit. Maybe he's able to take him down there, but this is a former football player. It's not like he was like a collegiate wrestler or anything like that. Does he have much BJJ? Because I know Bryan Battle has a little bit in his trick pocket. I don't know. I just don't really like this matchup. I don't know if I'm gonna like very much for AJ Fletcher with his stature in this division. He can hit super hard. Maybe he can just land like a clubbing blow or something like that. But everything kind of just points towards Bryan Battle as far as I'm concerned. Like, yeah, he's 6'1", 77-inch reach. He's got 10-inch reach advantage. He can kind of just hang out at range and just deliver shots. I struggled to see a real legitimate path for AJ Fletcher here. So the pick is Bryan Battle. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm also gonna tail on that and just go with Bryan Battle. But yeah, I do see the path for AJ Fletcher. So piggybacking on some of the things that you said, and this is just me cutting on some slack and giving him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, dude, he came from a football background, jumps into MMA, super late starter, doesn't have a background in combat sports, but he gets with Tim Crater over in Louisiana, and Tim Crater developed Tim Poirier. Tim Crater himself fought in the UFC, BJJ black belt, pretty high level guy. So Fletcher's a slow starter, and when he came in against Matt Semmelsberger, I gave him no shot because I'm like, this guy's not jumping in there and beating Semmelsberger. You did give him a shot. At least you were willing to play the big plus money price tag. And for a kid that was green and raw and had less than 10 pro fights and had been fighting for like 2 years, he came from a football background. He's very physically strong and he's very athletic. Thing is that because he has no fighting experience, he doesn't pace himself well at all. Wins the early portion against Matthew Semmelsberger, gasses himself out, loses. Right against Angel Lusa's very next fight, he does the same thing. He actually kind of had a slower start to begin, but ultimately he just gasses himself out again. No good. Now he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Now backs against the wall, and he gets that Themba Gorimbo fight. But he put a lot of time into his strength and conditioning, his cardio. He fought at a much more relaxed pace. The first round, neither guy really did anything. The second round, he snatches up that guillotine choke. To me, still only 26 years old. This is experience he should have learned on the regional scene. He should be fighting for LFA and going through these, ups and downs, learning moments, and then he'll be a decent fighter. Unfortunately, he's in the UFC. He needs to do it on the spot. So he is faster. He's more athletic than Bryan Battle, and he has the wrestling advantage. Yes, he's had poor cardio in the past, but the Thimble Grimbo fight his last time out, he looked fairly fresh. And at 26 years old, this is an issue that could most definitely be addressed. He's gaining more experience. He's gaining more confidence. He's coming off a win. All that stuff's good. When you look at Bryan Battle, it's not just the Fakhretdinov fight where he gave up 7 takedowns. He gave up 7 takedowns on 9 attempts. He got taken down pretty much at any time that it was decided Fakhretdinov wanted to do so. And that's fair because Fakhretdinov is a big boy that's fought as high as 185 pounds, and you give him a pass there. It's the takedowns, 2 takedowns against Trejan Gore, 2 takedowns given up to Gilbert Urbina. Those all lead to an overall 38% takedown defense in the UFC. I don't know, man. I could see a path for Fletcher where he presses him up against the cage and he takes him down, and that's his path to victory. But yeah, I gotta go with your final assessment as well, that Bryan Battle has better volume and he fights good off his back foot. What I really liked in that Trejan Gore fight, sure, he gave up the 2 takedowns, but he was able to work his way back up, move off his back foot. And one thing that Bryan Battle does exceptionally well, probably his best characteristic, is that he fights moving backwards very, very good. He did that against Trejan Gore for the entire fight and lands the 114. His last fight against Gabe Green fires forward. Gabe Green's come forward brawler. Gabe Green's throwing down on him, and Bryan Battle looks like he actually gets hurt at one point, but he shells up, he counters, and he's like the first guy to knock out Gabe Green, who's otherwise extremely durable, at least so in the UFC. So him fighting off his back foot is his best characteristic. And AJ Fletcher, no doubt about it, because he's the stronger guy, he's going to be coming forward. I think this plays into Bryan Battle's, ideal scenario. Bryan Battle has a 77-inch reach, right? AJ Fletcher has a 67-inch reach. That's a 10-inch reach advantage. Bryan Battle can use that and fight off his back foot, which we know he does well. Easy decision. The flip side to that is the 10-inch reach is great when they're on the outside of it, but in the apex, when it's a small confined space, he gets under that reach. He's taking you down, which he's strong enough to do so, and he's holding you down, and you get screwed on some dicey-ass decision, and you look at yourself in the mirror and realize you bet Bryan Battle at damn near 2-1. So I always envision my worst-case scenario. You just heard it. But, is it enough for me to outright take the underdog Fletcher? No. He needs to prove some stuff first. Whereas Bryan Battle, a little more battle-tested. Her. But yeah, no, seriously, we've seen more from him. We have a better idea of what to expect. And those are reasons I would say he wins.
All I will add to it at the end, we are on the same page, but AJ Fletcher against Ange Lusa, 0 for 4 on takedowns. And Lusa actually took him down twice, won the wrestling exchanges. Themba Gorimbo took him down.
He can wrestle, though. He's a strong guy, and he was training with Colby Covington. Colby Covington was, paid for his camp. Good guy, Colby. People hate him.
Friends don't let...
He bought him lunch a few times. But still, good guy, Colby Covington.
Friends don't let friends bet on people who took down, or who got taken down by Themba Gorimbo. I'm glad we're on the same page, because we would have to have... We'd have to have a chat, Cody. Moving on down, we've got Charles Jourdain taking on Ricardo Ramos. Jourdain, a minus 140 favorite. Ramos can be had for plus 120. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, I'm going to go Charles Jourdain. Canada's actually having a pretty good year so far. I mean, you got some good wins. Mike Malone's picked up key victories. Jasmine Jasudavicius has a win over Maverick. She was very competitive against Tracy Cortez, a popular undefeated fighter. Kyle Nelson had a breakout year. So I'm back on the Canadian bandwagon, baby. I know it's my own people. I should be supporting them from the start, but I'm in on it. terms of Charles Jourdain, the one thing about Charles Jourdain is right since his TKO career, because you remember this guy when he was on the Quebec regional scene to now, is that, I often look at what's a guy's best characteristic. Again, and some people they have they're a great striker, they're a great wrestler. Some people have those X factors where it's like he's got a massive heart, or he's got great cardio, very, very solid durability. Charles Jourdain is a good striker. He's not a good wrestler. His jiu-jitsu is good, but it's like you don't want to be on your back the whole time. His cardio's solid, his chin's solid, but really the best thing about him is he lives in the fire. He thrives in the fire. Most people's natural instinct to fire is to run away and seek help, and his natural instinct is to run into the burning building. It's just he's wired differently. As such, he gives up the easiest of the takedowns because he's not focusing on his opponent potentially taking him down. He's focusing on knocking them out, windmilling shots, throwing flying knees. I will admit, 27, he's starting to figure it out. He's starting to dial it in and fight a little more complete. But at the end of the day, he is who he is. He's Air Jourdain. And you got to love him for that. When I look at Ricardo Ramos, only 28 years old, still a good prospect himself, has fought in some decent guys, but he's actually quite the opposite. He does not thrive in the tough situations. His losses are to Said Nurmagomedov, who's a 125-pound fighter, for the record, and Said knocks him out. Now, here's the thing with Said. Total badass. Not actually related to Khabib, for the record, but a total flyweight badass. Not really known for his striking power. He's more of a grappler. He decision you, he can submit you. And in this fight, it takes one single round. He knocks out Ricardo Ramos. Ramos' other loss in the UFC, he loses to Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy's a decision guy. His fights typically go to decision. I think he's had 6 of them in the UFC. 4 of them have gone the distance. He's not really like the biggest power guy, and yet he folds Ricardo Ramos in one single round. I got questions. And then for Ramos, he's young, sure, but he loses to Zubair Tuhugov. He beats Danny Chavez. He had a fight with Danny Henry. He got hurt. They both got hurt. And then with this Austin Lingo fight, right? This is in March of this year. He tips the scales at 154 for a fight at 145. He comes in like 9 pounds, 9 pounds overweight, 0 attempt to make weight. His opponent obviously doesn't accept it. The commission generally doesn't even allow you to fight if you're more than 7 pounds overweight. So the fight gets scrapped. And he's young, and he's getting older. And he's filling out. He's getting more mature. And yet, he never looks good on the scales. I went back and I looked at all of his other weigh-ins, and he always looks tired and drawn out. And then yet, finally, he botches a weight cut by 10 pounds. And then they sideline him for like 7 months. It's not like, oh, shit, okay, well, Josh Frem botched his weight cut 3.5 pounds. They let him fight a month later. This kid, they weren't just like, yeah, sure, let's book you a month later. It's like 7 months later. And now they're coming back. He needs to now make that weight, which I'm uncertain that he's able to do. He needs to now make that weight comfortably and fight Charles Jourdain, who's going to throw the kitchen sink at him. He even knocked out by Lerone Murphy in a round. He got knocked out by Said Nurmagomedov in a round. He gets hit by Charles Jourdain, it's not going to be a good time. And for all of Jourdain's faults, he's never not competitive against anybody. Like his fight with Shane Burgos was extremely competitive fight. He has a ton of moments. He puts up great volume. He outstruck Shane Burgos 113-42. But he lost the fight. What did he? Because he gave him one hell of a scrap. His fight with Nathaniel Wood, he gave up 5 takedowns in that fight, and yet he only got outstruck 97-86. Still put up 86 significant strikes with 5 takedowns given up. His fight with Kron Gracie, he's a sizable underdog in that fight. He puts up a masterclass and beats him up pillar to post. Takedown defense looked a lot better. Kids training. Kids getting better. Kids figuring it out. So, bad fight for Ramos to come back to, because even if he has some early success and gets Jourdain down, possible, I don't think he's submitting him quickly. I really don't. And the longer this thing goes, it's going to start to become a dogfight. And when it becomes a dogfight, the actual dog is going to win said fight. So we talked about Kyle Nelson having the dog in him last time, and I just didn't pull the trigger. And really, that was my one fault from last weekend. I should have had some more faith, or at least I should have put some money behind Kyle Nelson. This week with Jourdain, it's much of the same. He's got the dog, and I think that's what's going to lead him to win. He might lose the first round. Kyle Nelson lost the first round too. The end of the day, he's going to get his hands raised because he's just going to go through the trials and the tribulations.
You almost had me to have like a shoey bet there until you brought up the egregious weight miss last time. Because what I was gonna say is, what is Charles Jourdain except for being French-Canadian Bill Algeo, who, you know, both of them struggle with their takedowns, both of them volume striking guys. I would say that Jourdain's Muay Thai is definitely more like, you know, more impactful, more finishes. Like he throws like super hard, you know, knocks a bunch of guys down and that type of thing. But yeah, the weight cut for Ramos is pretty huge. Missing by 9 pounds and then having to come back and do it. And you are right. Like he always looks super skinny. I mean, they all do. They're cutting themselves to the brink of death sometimes. Who knows what goes on behind the curtain a lot of the times. Like it gets super ugly back there, I'm sure. But yeah, his cheekbones are always like really sucked in. Pending he makes weight, I'll pick Ricardo Ramos. But it's probably one of those things if he misses or if he looks like really sick on Friday morning when they're doing the weigh-ins, I would definitely swap that pick. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I think that he could implement that Bill Algeo game plan where he got 8 takedowns. You know, wasn't able to submit him or anything, but 8 takedowns, was able to control the fight, win what was a little bit more of a boring type of strategy from Ricardo Ramos than we're used to seeing, you know, with spinning back fists and flashy submissions and all of that. That game plan, I feel like, is there for Ramos, but I mean, I have no idea about like what the quality of his camp and all of that. So it's tough for me to like put actual money on it, but I'll pick him for the purposes of this show. You almost had a shoey bet of me taking plus 120, Cody. So you did a good job of talking me out of that. You almost had me. You almost had me there, bro.
I would definitely take a shoey bet with you, but I'd rather just see you save. I'd rather you save your money, man. Ricardo Ramos was fighting. He was. If you think about this as well, and I gotta see weigh-ins. I always like to wait till weigh-ins, but Ramos started his UFC career at 135, and fought Amin Zahabi and those guys at 135 pounds, and then moved up to 145, and then botched a massive weight cut at 145. Jourdain, he was a TKO champ at 155. He made his UFC debut against Des Green at 155. And he could conceivably go back to 155 and not look terribly out of place, although the wrestlers would kill him. He just can't wrestle at that weight class. I'd like to see the guys at the weigh-ins, but the main thing is I think Jourdain wins in either scenario. So no shoey bet out of Paul Shaughnessy, but hopefully our Canadian brother goes out there and gets the win.
You have yourself to blame for me not taking that shoey bet. You were just too convincing, Cody. Too convincing for me to risk it. Even though my shoey situation is a lot easier than your shoey situation. Anyway, moving on down, we've got Dan Argueta taking on Miles Johns. Argueta minus 175 favorite. Miles Johns could be half plus 150. Who you got?
Yeah, so again, this one, I don't know. I don't think there's any real narrative, at least that I can figure out in this fight. But I think if you go based on what you see, it seems like Dan Argueta is just very strong, very physical. And the biggest thing about him is he ain't going nowhere, man. That's what I like about him, is that if you're going to fight one of these real tenacious type styles, you got to be able to keep up that pace. You got to be able to go out there and consistently put it on. He debuted against Damon Jackson. What's important to note here is that this is his UFC debut, which is always a tough task. But he makes his UFC debut 1 month, 4 weeks after his last fight for LFA, in which he won a split decision. He won a split decision for 5 rounds at 135 pounds. So wins the LFA title, hard-fought split decision, 25-minute fight. 4 weeks later, makes his UFC debut against Damon Jackson at 145 pounds. Moves up a weight class, took a fight on a month's notice after having just fought for a world title and winning it. It's a regional world title, but still, he fought a Brazilian guy. This guy's a badass, man. And not only that, I gave him almost no shot against Damon Jackson, who's on a bit of a run, is a savvy veteran, has 10 fights in the UFC, is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, can box. What's there not to like about Damon Jackson? This kid's taking the fight on like a few weeks' notice, having just fought, is banged up, and he's moving up a weight class. But what you see in that fight is the first 2 rounds, Damon Jackson wins, as Damon Jackson's supposed to. But Argueta's not going anywhere, man. He's a fantastic grappler. He's a very strong wrestler. 45 debut, all these things. Maybe that's all playing against him. But in the 3rd round, he's inches away from pulling off a stunning comeback and a stunning underdog win. Because he, even though everything was stacked against him, he persevered through everything. He broke on through, and so that in itself, I really liked him. The thing is that I really like. Oh, sorry, his next fight against Nick Aguirre. Uh, Again, both grapplers. More experience. He racks it up. And then I took Ronnie Lawrence. And I put Ronnie Lawrence, I think, on my first top ticket. Might have been second ticket. I'm a huge Ronnie Lawrence fan. Obviously, we know how good Ronnie Lawrence is in the wrestling department. He had scored 23 takedowns in his first 3 UFC fights. Yeah, he lost, a tough fight against Sayakub Kakramanov, but no one was writing a pass on that. He's a sizable enough favorite over Danny, who's getting written off again, just like the Damon Jackson fight. And like, holy shit, Paul, man. This kid's getting good. This kid's very strong. He's very physical. He easily takes Ronnie Lawrence down. He snatches up a topside guillotine. He had fished that same guillotine in that round 3 or 4 times, and yet you see the level of commitment he has to it because he has that confidence. I didn't think it was going to stick. I didn't think it was a good game plan, hunting guillotine choke over and over. Hits him on the top side. This thing looks tight. Ronnie does not tap. The ref stops it, as you see from nowadays. That is a no contest. Fair no contest. Ronnie didn't tap. The thing is that a lot of people, myself included, sigh of relief. I didn't want that fight to go on because I could see what was happening. And when I went online, a lot of people were like, well, Ronnie got robbed from his chance because Ronnie could have fought his way back into that fight. Fair, he could have. But Danny wasn't going anywhere, man. Danny wasn't going anywhere. He had him in a full mount. He had him in a tight guillotine choke. If that choke itself didn't stick, fine. He was still the stronger man. He was the better wrestler. He was a stout grappler, and you saw what kind of shape he was in. And then I'll always remember this. It depends if you watch it on TV or your stream, but if you have a stream that doesn't go to commercials, right? It'll follow them around, and you'll get these really unique exchanges. And so Danny just submits Ronnie Lawrence as a sizable underdog, and it's the biggest win of his UFC career. He doesn't know at the time it's going to be a no contest because he thinks he won the fight, rightfully so. And then he just like walks over to his corner, man, and he's just like, "Oh man, my dad told me I should get a haircut before I left the house. Like, I should do my hair before I left the house." Like that's how chill he was about it. It wasn't like this huge dumping of adrenaline, and he's on the cage and he's freaking out. It's like it was just another day at the office. And I decided right there, this kid, my boy, I like him. So Miles John on paper has a lot of good tools. Miles John wrestled collegiately. Miles John rocking a 92% takedown defense in the UFC. If Miles John successfully goes out there and sprawl and brawls him, which he's capable of doing, he's got the slicker boxing. He's got the faster hands, and the kid can hit. His cardio is not great. It's not great at all, but I think there's a lot to like about Miles John. What I break down to myself, though, over and over is that John seems undersized for the weight class. And in a couple of his fights, most namely the Cole Smith fight, right? 3rd round, he's flat gassed out. He gets out grappled, back taken by Cole Smith. Shout out to another Canadian. Real bad look. And then he got knocked out in his very next fight against Mario Batista once he tired out and lost the 2nd round. He was somewhat tired against Kevin Natividad. He was big time tired against John Castellaneta. And in his last time out against Vince Morales, he paced himself, but it was Vince Morales who's a low output fighter. So what I'm getting at is he might have on paper the wrestling and the takedown defense and the faster hands, but he don't got the grind and he don't got the cardio. And if Danny just keeps coming forward, then eventually Argueta is going to take him down. Argueta is going to snatch the neck. Argueta is going to take the back. It will eventually materialize. So I got Argueta. I don't mind the pre-line money line. I got a feeling that if he gets off to a slow start and maybe loses that first round, you can get an even better price tag on him. Main thing is Miles slows down, Argueta picks up, and that'll be the difference maker to me.
Yeah, for me, it's like this fight. I hate to it always feels like a cop out, but like it feels like it's a better fight live because I don't know what it's gonna look like when Argueta goes in there, tries to secure takedowns against him. And Miles Johns isn't exactly the most high volume guy, but he has, threw up 80 significant strikes against Anderson Dos Santos in a 3rd round TKO win. It's like he's capable of it. And that is my biggest problem with Argueta is like if he's not getting takedowns, he had 47 against against Aguirre. He had, Damon Jackson. He was obviously coming off of super short notice, fighting up a weight class against a decent opponent. But yeah, 27 significant strikes. He's only taken down twice. Like, my biggest problem with him is that I haven't really seen volume from him. So if he's not able to get a takedown early in this fight, then he's probably an underdog entering round 2 because I expect Miles John, at least early in the fight, to land more strikes and probably more convincing strikes of the two guys here. So I'm going to pick Argueta, but pre-flop, not very interested in the minus 175. I think it's a better spot. Like if he goes out there, takes down Miles Johns immediately off the hop, it's just like I'm hopping in. We'll see what the price is at that point, but yeah, I mean, I just that 92% takedown defense for Miles Johns is kind of concerning.
Against who? Against who?
I
Against
know.
who?
He hasn't taken on anybody with much wrestling capabilities, but I don't know. I don't really rate Damon Jackson's takedowns all that well, and he was able to take Argueta down twice. So I don't know. This is like one of these like wrestler versus wrestler fights that I really struggle with because like I don't clear cut know who's better. At least in the early rounds. Like I think in round 3, Argueta is going to be able to take over. What's Argueta to win in round 3? This is a real roundabout way for me to get interested in some sort of real greasy long prop. Argueta round 3, it's not that generous. Plus 800.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Plus 800 is
honestly,
the best that I see, and Argueta doesn't really, unless he snatches up a submission, he doesn't really strike me as like a big time finisher. I don't know. Argueta's going to be the pick, but I don't think I'm really getting to it pre-flop.
Damon Jackson is actually training partners with him, right? So maybe you got the inside track. It's like Miles John trains with Damon Jackson at 4 to 7 May. He's able to tell him just a couple tricks, a couple things. But how do you think the conversation went down? It was probably like, hey, dude, you fought this guy. What can you tell me? Oh, man, I fought this guy. I was a minus 720 favorite. I almost got my ass beat, man. This guy's good. This guy's strong. This guy's physical. And the last 2 quick points and we'll jump on is Miles John's not a volume striker himself. He prefers to get it done with 30 to 50 significant strikes. So he picks his punches. He is the better boxer. And Dan Argueta is actually extremely hittable. So, yeah, standing, he should have his things. But the reason why Dan Argueta has such low volume on the ground is what I notice when I'm watching the fights with him. It's extremely hard to land any strikes when your hands are clasped together around somebody's neck, right? So he's a submission guy, and he's constantly trying to isolate limbs using both of his hands. He could benefit from more elbows. He could benefit from some more ground and pound, but it seems like in order to ground and pound guys, you give up space. That's why Nick Diaz loved fighting in Japan. You can't elbow, so you have to punch. And when you try to punch, that creates the space that allows jiu-jitsu guys to work, right? Dan's not looking to give you any space. He's just like stuck on you. I don't know. Maybe I'm overrating him. Maybe I'm buying too highly into him. But again, this is a guy that already had impressed me through his 2 UFC fights. He's a former LFA champ. And at 30 years old, he's no means a prospect, but yeah, he's got 10 pro fights. Like he's on his way up. He's making improvements. He's getting comfortable. So I don't hate the price tag, but live betting market, you're correct. That's probably the best way to attack this one.
All right, moving on down. We've got Andre Fialho taking on Tim Means. Minus 160 for Fialho, plus 140 for Means. Cody, what do we do with this fight? I mean, you put a minus next to Andre Fialho. You put a minus next to his name, and I'm just like, I'm not going to lie. I'm like considering about the Dirty Bird, but I think the Dirty Bird is like way past his prime, kind of washed, bad cardio. Doesn't exactly like knock people clean out, and that's what I want in an Andre Fialho fade. Like, I am really torn up about this fight, but like, I suppose I'm leaning towards Tim the Dirty Bird Means. Strictly because I could see this fight going both ways, and he's got a plus 140 price tag next to him. Literally nothing more than that. I just refuse to lay chalk on Andre Fialho at this point. Like literally at any point. Like, I don't think his durability is all that well. He can hit hard, don't get me wrong, but both guys are kind of like quick starters, and I feel like one of these bodies is going to hit the floor. Who's it going to be, bud?
Honestly, I was thinking the same thing. I got Tim Means. I do have a rather high number of favorites. I got an underdog, Mateusz Gamrot, in the main event, but I'm not comfortable or confident in that in the slightest bit. I have a couple underdogs on this card. Again, they all fit the same description. I don't really have any confidence in them. But Tim Means, yeah, he's one of those guys. Because this is a greasy-ass fight. And if you're going to have a greasy-ass, dirty-ass fight, Why not take the dirty bird? This is what I don't mind about him, dude. 39 years old, and he's got 50 pro fights, yeah? 32, yeah, so it was 47, 48. He's with the no contest, 49. This will be his 50th pro fight, and that's what's on paper. He's been fighting from a time where stuff didn't get put on paper. He's kind of definitely at the end of his run. That being said, that's been the narrative on him in his last couple of years, and he's been pretty competitive against Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's current top 10 guy of the division. Kevin Holland's a decent fighter, in fact, fairly good fighter. He got caught in the second round. But again, the competition, even as an elder veteran of the UFC, they've been giving him stiff tasks. It's the last two against Max Griffin and Alex Morono. He's extremely competitive in both of those fights. The first one with Max Griffin loses a split decision, but he outstruck Griffin 47-42 and scored 3 takedowns. Now, Griffin's been in there with a lot of good guys. Griffin generally gives a fairly solid account of himself and is a tough fighter. Means showed that there is a wrinkle to his game. His wrestling was always solid, just not something he would constantly go to. 3 takedowns there. And again, he outstruck Max Griffin, who's got a nasty jab and, again, a knack for sticking in against tough guys. That's a solid fight. Loses the split decision, and I agree. I thought he lost the split decision. Very competitive. And when you're older, you need to show some signs of life, that you're not just chinny and all this and that and the other. He did. The next fight against Alex Morono. Alex Morono is a good fighter. Not a great fighter. Not a top 10 fighter. But a fringe 15 guy. A guy that fights other good fighters and generally gives a good account of himself. Through the first round and a half, yeah, again, Tim Means looks good. He outstrikes Alex Morono 40-33. He lands 2 takedowns over Alex Morono. The wrestling's there. That creativity's there. He's always been known as a crafty striker, very versatile striker, and that's on display. Loves front kicks up the body, right? Loves that little toe stab. Loves to just slip. Got an excellent jab on him. His problem is that he doesn't really tie it together for 15 minutes great, but he's fighting good guys. Against Andre Fialho, I don't think he needs to tie it together for anything longer than 7 minutes, because if he can do that, he can probably knock out Andre Fialho. Fialho came over from Bellator. He didn't have a great run in Bellator. He had fought Chidi Njokwani actually one time in Bellator, and I think he got knocked out in like, I don't know, 11 seconds, 12 seconds or something like that. His chin, not that good. His wrestling's non-existent. His grappling's pretty much non-existent, at least not offensively. But the guy can bang. Thing is that banging it out, being a frontward pressure fighter is only going to last if you have the durability and you have the chin, and he just doesn't quite have that. When they signed him to the UFC, he decided be the entertaining fighter, and it kind of worked out. He went the distance with Michel Pereira, which nobody saw coming because neither guy's a decision guy. Then he knocks out Miguel Baeza in the first round. He knocks out Cameron Van Camp, a lightweight, knocks out him in the first round. The thing is you even see in the Van Camp fight, Van Camp lands a couple strikes, and he dazes him. He rocks him with one. He just overcomes it. The Jake Matthews fight. Jake Matthews is not a striker. He's a grappler. He's a BJJ guy. He does his best when he's taking you down and on top of you. Jake Matthews put an absolute thrashing on him. He looked the best he's ever looked. He looked like a bona fide striker. He just teed off on him and took him out. That's not a great look. And then right after that Jake Matthews fight, Jake Matthews, again, keep this in mind, is not a striker. So when he fought Jake Matthews, that was like the last time he went out with that idea of, I'm going to blast this guy. The next subsequent fights, Muslim Salikov and Joaquin Buckley, they are strikers. And Paul, the approach is not there. He does not want to engage them. He's not trying to get in your face and make this a dirty fight and throw down. He's super hesitant of getting hit. And as he's sitting there waiting to get hit against Salikov, who outstruck him 56-17, into the third round. He had landed 17 significant strikes. He's super gun shy. And for the record, he got taken down by Salikov as well. He gets knocked out in the third. And then his last fight against Joaquin Buckley, I guess he tried to fight Buckley a little bit, but it was literally like he had a little success. He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. And the first shot that dazed him, he completely falls apart. Tim Means is a crafty veteran. He's got over 50 fights. He sets up his shots pretty good. And even though maybe he's not one of these 15-minute guys, 2 fights back against Max Griffin, he did go 15. His last fight against Morono, he gave a good account of himself. Both of those fights, he's outstriking his opponent. Both of those fights, he mixes in takedowns. If my boy, the Dirty Bird, can come in here and give me that, I think he's a live underdog too, dude. Now, do I love it? No, he's 39 years old. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and it's Tim Means. But it's like, Andre Fialho, not that good, right? Not that good. And that in itself, I think there's value in this fight. And that in itself, I'm going to take Tim Means for the underdog selection.
Yeah, you just made me act up, Cody. I just bet Tim Means plus 155. That was available to me. Right in the moment there, right on the fly. I'm like, I see it going to like plus 140s, plus 130s elsewhere. It's just like I'm hopping on before it moves closer because who's laying the wood on Andre Fialho? Nobody is. Now watch, he goes out and gets a first round knockout. But
it's possible, but if
of
they
course.
fought 10 times, it's also 5 of those times he's getting iced or taken down. So. Or again, I want to know his approach because Tim Means is a striker and a good counter striker. If he comes forward at Means, I think he gets counter punched. If he decides to sit back and let Means work from the outside, he's definitely getting slapped. So it's up to him to figure it out. But my boy Tim Means got one last rodeo left in him, and I'm here for it.
Let's go, Dirty Bird. One last for the road. All right, let's move on. We've got Jacob Malkoun taking on Cody Brundage, minus 600. Biggest favorite on the card is Jacob Malkoun. Brundage can be had for plus 420. I mean, here's the interesting thing. It's like the book's finally caught up on Malkoun. You know what I mean? It's like he's been an underdog literally in like pretty much every single fight. Guy can't finish a sandwich, but he's got solid wrestling and he sticks to a game plan pretty much every single time that he's out there. You know, just sticks on you like glue. And we're looking at like the real big question in this fight, Cody, is how many times will Cody Brundage jump guillotine? Because that's how, like, I mean, I took Dumas last time out because I was just like, I thought the line had like overcorrected itself. And it was just like clockwork. He's just like constantly jumping. It's like everybody who's watched any sort of tape on Brundage knows that he loves this maneuver, probably works out in the gym when he's training with his buddies. It doesn't work out in not even the highest level, but like medium grade MMA fights. Like people are pretty wise to it these days. You got to be really, really good to be able to pull off that maneuver. And in this fight, if he pulls off jumping guillotine, like he's just giving Malkoun all the top control, which is all Malkoun really wants. I mean, what I remember actually looking like last night, and I was just like considering how this fight usually plays out. Yeah, it's like the market's actually moving to giving you more on like he opened up at like plus 100 to win by decision, and now Malkoun by decision can be had for plus 135. So, I mean, on PrizePicks, 3.5 takedowns seems like a lot, but like you go through his stats, got like 9 last time out against Maximov. He's got 7 against Brendan Allen. He got 6 against AJ Dobson. He got 8 against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. All of those fights go the full 15 minutes. 3.5 for Jacob Malkoun doesn't seem all that bad. I haven't seen enough from like Brundage to like lead me to believe that like he's a giant threat in terms of landing a big bomb. Of course, there are middleweights. It could definitely happen. Malkoun by decision is like plus 135. I see it some shops out there. I don't mind that. I think he's just going to do what he does. Take you down, land some like, you know, pitter patter, ground and pound, just enough that the ref doesn't stand you up. If he does get stood up, he doesn't spend too much time on the feet. He attacks that takedown again, rinse and repeat. So, I mean, I feel like it's a very typical Malkoun fight, and we're going to see a very typical Malkoun result. What's your take here?
Yeah, honestly, this to me seems like play of the week and a half. Now I get it's a minus 600. So like, what do you do with it? You put it at the top ticket and you put it with stuff. And again, we talked about how, you know, some of these minus 600 favorites, you don't feel great about the price. And last week it was Rosas Jr. is a minus 750, and it's like you still love it. You still love it because it's like, how does he lose? How does he lose? And you can't quite figure it out. I think Malkoun's that safe of a favorite. And maybe I'm over talking myself. Maybe he's gonna go out. Maybe the judges don't like that grinding type style, but Jacob Malkoun has all the tools and more to go out there and be successful against Cody Brundage. First of all, the guy's actually on a solid streak. He loses his UFC debut by quick knockout. But outside of that, you made a great point. He's getting not just takedowns, it's multiple takedowns against all these guys. Abdul Razak Al Hassan is a judo black belt, yet he got taken down 8 times. AJ Dobson's one of the most physically strong guys in the division, a former powerlifter, got taken down 6 times. Brendan Allen, how's he doing lately? I'll tell you how he's doing. He went on to win his next 3 fights. Now he's headlining a UFC fight, a card against Paul Craig. And for the record, everybody screamed robbery when they announced Brendan Allen as the winner of that fight.
Myself
Because
included.
of the 7 take. And I had Brendan Allen, and it was a greasy fight. And I was like, yeah, what's up? Because it was one of the original. I got taken down for 90% of the fight, but I landed the damage. I landed the strikes. Brendan Allen outstruck him 45-33. And so he gets a lot of takedowns, but the volume's not quite there. And then his last fight against Nick Maximov, wrestled collegiately, right? Junior college, but all the same, college wrestling experience, is a BJJ black belt, trains with Nick and Nate Diaz, and he took him down 9 times as well. So, like, the guy gets lots of takedowns. I think he's a black belt now. He's a brown belt, I think, in his last fight. All the same. He's got high-level jiu-jitsu. He's Robert Whitaker's jiu-jitsu coach, let's put it that way. And the takedowns are there for a guy that doesn't come from Russia or the United States, doesn't have some deep wrestling pedigree. He's very, very physically strong. And when he clasps his hands around you, you're going to go for a ride. So I like what I see out of him. Had they given him the Allen decision the way they should have, it puts him on a 4-fight winning streak, and he's not fighting Cody Brundage. Let's be real. Unfortunately, again, they didn't love the wrestling and the top control in that fight. So it was a bit of a setback, and now he's got to work his way back up. With Cody Brundage, there's lots of things going bad here. So first and foremost, here's another guy that comes from a wrestling background. He wrestled in college. He's got that American wrestling style. And whereas I thought he was an okay wrestler, certainly early, it just really hasn't translated. Like, some guys have an MMA wrestling style, I guess you could say, and some guys have a college wrestling style. I think it's the difference between college wrestling is mostly freestyle, and freestyle doesn't really translate as well to the UFC than folk style does. And these guys that are bad folk style wrestlers, it doesn't matter if you have all these great accolades, it doesn't really translate over. Brundage is that guy. Now, when you talk about Jacob Malkoun taking guys down and landing nothing, Brundage is pretty much the worst guy I've seen in recent memory. Look at these fights, man. Just disgusting. Him on the Contender Series versus William Knight. Some of them are finishes. A lot of them are first round. But he lands 19. His fight with Nick Maximov, it went 25 minutes. He landed 28. Him versus Dolce, which he won. Almost 4 minutes into the fight, he landed 4. Him versus Trijan Gore, 15. Him versus Mikey O, 0. Him versus Rodolfo Vieira, 20. Him versus Cedric Dumas. It went 15 minutes, Paul. Yep. He landed 3 significant strikes. He threw 10 significant strikes. I throw more significant strikes on the way to the fridge between rounds. Pumped up. Shadow boxing. Then he threw in 15 minutes of fighting a guy. Like, we were laughing at Cedric Dumas being Cedric Dumbass, but what a terrible game plan, jumping guard for guillotine chokes over and over. For the record, he pulled guard on a guillotine choke against Rodolfo Vieira in the fight back. He won the first round, pulled guard on a guillotine choke, and got beat up and submitted in the second. Like, what are you thinking, man? And so none of this bodes well. His wrestling is not good enough to keep Malkoun off him. His striking is non-existent. He doesn't even let his hands go. If he managed to end up on top, he's not catching Malkoun in a guillotine choke, and he's not TKOing him. If this fight goes in the third round, despite part is Malkoun is just a decision machine. And so this looks like another Malkoun by decision. You just follow the trend. But, like, I got a bad gut feeling Malkoun stops him because he's not going to spend 15 minutes with Malkoun on top of him. Ground and pound's not great, whatever, but still, he's going to work him over. The guy's going to tire. Brunner's going to tire, and when he does, he's giving something up that's stupid. And when you compare his 10 or 20 significant strikes, 3 landed against Dumas, it makes Malkoun look like a world beater, landing 83, 33, 80, and 27. All of a sudden, that looks pretty good in comparison. So he's got the wrestling advantage. He's got the output. He's got the cardio. He's got the strength. He's got the experience. He might have beaten Brandon Allen, and then he's knocking on top 10 status. He should romp here. Now it's MMA. I'm going to walk into a flying knee or something stupid. Or the judges are going to, you know what? The judges are not going to give me a bad decision because you have to outwork your opponent from your back or from some type of position to warrant that. And Brundage he's going to accept it. He's going to accept it. So he's got a dope ass first name. Can't take that away from him. But outside of that, I think he's going to lose the fight.
It is interesting. Like, the books are giving you, but like they opened it at shorter odds for Malkoun by decision than they're giving you now. Like, somebody out there is laying the wood on like the unders in this fight, or different finish props and stuff for Malkoun. I mean, his UFC run has just been like. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, Cody. I think I may have tried it in one of his fights, and I was just like. I think it was against Abdullah Razak Al-Hassan. I'm like, Al-Hassan is going to gas so ferociously in this fight that it's like Malkoun will be able to, tire him out and find a finish, even though this guy doesn't seem to finish anybody at this level. And then he was able to he just kind of dragged him along. It's like, I don't know if I could ever put money behind a Malkoun finish. This guy just loves getting the full 15 in. Some people like going for like runs in the morning and just like, they love that grind. It's like, maybe he just loves it. Maybe he just loves it. He doesn't seem to really ever like search for a finish. I don't know. I still think Malkoun by decision. We'll see when more books open up. If he finds a finish, good on him. But when more books open up, I'll have more options. Maybe I get plus 150 even on it. Best on market right now is plus 135. We will see where it goes as the week goes along. Moving on down, we've got Mohammed Usman taking on Jake Collier. Minus 135 for Usman, plus 115 for Jake Collier, the prototype. Is he still calling himself the prototype since he turned into a fat man?
Yeah, I don't. He definitely shouldn't call himself the prototype anymore. But to be honest, I've not heard them call him that in a while. Maybe it's just been slipping my mind.
You have to drop that nickname when you put on like 90 pounds. You can't call yourself the prototype. For people who don't know, Collier used to fight at middleweight, 185 pounds. Now he tips the scales. Disappeared for 3 years, showed up, and like didn't look like the same person. He still has like decent cardio sometimes. Like he can fight a full 15 minutes, but like, I don't know. Durability isn't great. His grappling can be exploited. He's kind of a big old mess. I mean, in theory, he should be able, like if he can keep this fight standing, which is a big if, I suppose, he should be able to 100%, outland Mohammed Usman, who does not really have volume whatsoever. But it's a big if. Is Mohammed Usman going to be able to take him down at will? I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I got mixed emotions about this one. So on one hand, Jake Collier, yeah, why would you put money on Jake Collier? First of all, why would you put money on Jake Collier? Second of all, plus 115 is just not good enough. I'm actually down to put money on Jake Collier. In fact, I think I might pick him. Maybe. But I would want better than plus 115 for my risk, first and foremost. I mean, he's on a 3-fight losing streak, and yeah, I just don't know how much you could like about him. You're right. At middleweight, he was the prototype, but at heavyweight, he's the prototype 2 diabetes. I don't know. I got nothing, but it's just he's not the same, dude. He's not even just like, oh, dude, he's 230, 240. He's 265 in all of the fights. He tips the scale 265 or 265 and a half for all of these fights. And I think that not super good for him. He got away with it a little bit early, but since they've kind of upped his level of competition, he's gassing out. His 3 fights back, I guess, against Andrei Arlovsky, he kept pace with Arlovsky. He landed him 93 to 91. He landed 2 takedowns. He lost a split. Universally, a lot of people thought he won the fight. The next fight against Chris Barnett, he killed Barnett in the first round. Mm-hmm. He outstruck Barnett 42 to 16 in the first round. It's one-way traffic. It is a beatdown. In the second round, I don't know what happens to him. He's just gassed, super gassed. And he's a volume guy for heavyweight, and he's a mobile heavyweight because of his past as being the smaller guy. And in that one particular fight, which is 2 fights back, absolutely gassed. And as soon as he gassed, it went all downhill. He got knocked out. Big underdog loss. Our big loss is a favorite. Underdog score for Barnett. Really bad look. His very next fight against Martin Budaj, he outstruck Budaj 45 to 27 in the first round. And it's much of the same. He's moving well. He's throwing well. He's actually got decent footwork. He's got good volume. Once the second round hits, he's huffing for air. He's tired. He's done. And he loses the fight. So cardio has been the biggest issue in his last 2 fights. But if you look at the first round in both of those fights, it's there. He's not that bad. He's serviceable for sure. He's quick for this division. He's got decent volume for this division. He can't carry it. And so if he wants to just pack up his career, it's a 3-fight losing streak now. Should have won the Arlovsky fight, but they didn't give it to him, so it's a 3-fight losing streak now. He loses this. He's likely done. They're bringing him in against Kamaru Usman's brother, probably to lose. And if he's okay and he's going to accept that, then he's going to get on the scales at 265 pounds on Friday, and then you'll know not to bet him. However, I got an inclining. Go to his social media and look at any of the recent pictures of him. He's looking fit. Now, I don't know if he's looking 255 fit or 245 fit, but he looks like he's noticeably lost weight. Like he's actively trying to maybe shed off some of that additional weight. And if he comes in and has a little better cardio and can last 2 rounds instead of 1, he's live to win this fight. He's got way bigger volume. He's way faster. And I guess Usman's not like his brother. He's got an okay gas tank. I think that's why they call him the motor, but he mostly just leans on guys up against the cage. He's physically strong, but he's slow. His attacks are mostly just overhand right, 1 shot at a time, maybe a 1-2, but he's going to fall behind the volume. He's going to fall behind the speed. He's mostly going to be chasing Collier around, and Collier doesn't fight particularly bad with his back up against the cage. If he can keep the fight standing, he'll land those short chopping blows. If Collier, for whatever reason, ends up on top, he's got a ground game advantage. I strongly believe if he's on top, he'll be more than fine. You saw his win. I mean, you've seen him style on guys. Chase Sherman, I guess, comes to mind. He just took him down and effortlessly beat him. He's, again, serviceable. And for Mohammed Usman, I never been a fan. I wasn't a fan of his fights on the regional scene. He had low-level losses over there. He got until the Ultimate Fighter. He looked stiff. He looked rigid. He's definitely older. His brother's already on the back swing of his career, and Mohammed's just starting his career off. His win over that Zach Pauga turned out to be quite literally the worst guy in the UFC, and he's a 205er, so he wins that one. Him versus Junior Taffa, I don't know, I guess I expected more from Junior Taffa, but keep in mind, he got outstruck 22-7. He landed 2 takedowns and 7 significant strikes over 15 minutes against a kickboxer who reasonably had no grappling experience. Well, Jake Collier has lots of grappling experience and can wrestle and is bigger and has way more experience, not making his debut. And if you're coming to the table with 7 significant strikes, Collier's coming to the table with 100 significant strikes. So to the point that you and I talked about earlier in the show, it's possible that Usman gets 2 takedowns and a whole bunch of cage control, but lands shit, and Collier lands some shit, and the judges give it to him. And so I'm willing to take the shot there. I will take Collier plus 115, but I would feel way better on Friday if we see him touch the scales and look decent. And I got a feeling that we might.
Yeah, I'm looking at his Twitter, where he has a photo from 5 hours ago. He doesn't even look like the fattest guy in the picture. That's a good start.
I know.
There's one on the 19th. The shirt is black, so I know as a guy who wears a lot of black shirts, it is slimming. I think what happened is he lost to Chris Barnett, and that fight he lost the T-shirt in the pool championship, right? As being like the guy who doesn't really look like a fighter but is a fighter, and I guess job on the line. He's like, what he does have an advantage over people is like if he can go 15 minutes, it's like there's not many guys who can throw up 130 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes in the heavyweight division, right? So hopefully, I'm with you. Well, he used to be a middleweight.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully that is the game plan. He comes in looking a little bit trimmer, and the cardio is on point because I'm siding with you. With plus 115, there are plus 130s out there to be had on Jake Collier. I think he's definitely the side. Anybody who throws as low a volume as Mohammed Usman, it's really, really tough to get behind it. And credit where credit's due. I know Budai, isn't exactly like a American-style wrestler, but he's got takedowns in his game, and he wasn't able to take down Jake Collier. So that was a very, very close fight by the numbers at the very least. Yeah, as a dog, Jake Collier. All right, let's go. Let's move on. We've got Mizuki Inoue taking on Hannah Goldy. Minus 310 for Inoue, plus 260 for Goldy. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, so like sometimes when I'm feeling real ballsy first thing in the morning and I'm checking things, I'm like, don't mind this underdog. And then like later on the afternoon, I come to my senses and it's like, I don't want to bet Hannah Goldy. Why would you want to? The thing with Mizuki Inoue is when she came over from Japan, it's like she's got quick hands, she's got good little boxing combinations, and she'll throw 3-4 punches at a time. Good volume, all good stuff I like. But her debut against Wu Yanan, she almost lost. It was a damn close fight. She squeaked out a split decision over Umanon, however you want to pronounce it, depending on what region you are in the world. But she got outstruck 123 to 93 against what represents the bottom level of talent in the UFC and virtually got exposed. Now, when she was fighting for Invicta, she could fight at 105 pounds. 105 pounds doesn't exist in the UFC. So she's fighting up and she's undersized. She's undersized and she didn't look good in that fight. The subsequent fight against Amanda Lemos, we'll see Amanda Lemos is big, she's strong, she's physical. So for an undersized, natural 105-pound fighter, just a bad matchup, Paul. It's a bad matchup. And where she kind of squeaked by against Wu Yanan and got lucky, it didn't happen in that one against Amanda Lemos, knocked her down, scored 2 takedowns, scored a knockdown, but with just a lot more physical, a lot stronger, and she's able to beat her by decision. So now she's been off. Has it been 3 years? It's been 3 years and a month. 3 years and a month that she's been off. None of that really gets you super excited for betting this type of price tag. I mean, she's minus what, 300? She's she's a minus 300 favorite. She's been off for 3 years. She looked awful in her first 2 fights. And the biggest knock against her is her physicality. Now she's taking on someone in Hannah Goldy, who, if nothing else, if she doesn't have anything else, she has the physicality. This girl is extremely well put together. She's very physical. And whereas she doesn't really grapple as much as she should, she mostly just follows you around and walks into shots. If she wanted to press the action and get this up against the cage, I think she's marginally stronger than Inoue and should be able to take Inoue down. Part of the reason why I get gun shy and I don't want Hannah Goldy, number of reasons. First of all, Hannah Goldy is very well physically put together. When has that ever served her well in the UFC? You know, it doesn't really matter. She follows her opponents around. She's getting hit. She's got the one win over Emily Whitmire, which is a first round armbar, which you do typically see in this division from time to time. But outside of that, like her Molly McCann fight, her Diana Delbita fight, and the Miranda Granger fight, she's non-competitive. Granger's no longer with the UFC. Belbita's definitely, carving a little reputation for herself out. But that was Belbita's coming out party because she beat her up pretty handedly. And then that Molly McCann fighter last time out, spinning back elbow in the first round. I don't know, man. It's definitely trending downhill for her. Inoue, meanwhile, what do we know that she's done over the last 3 years? Has she done anything notable? Maybe, maybe not. But she's only 29, so she's not old. It's not like 3 years off coming back at 35. It's 3 years off. It's the difference between 26 to 29. Surely there's been improvements. But here's a smart fighter that still has something to strive towards. And she's spent the large majority of that time in New York with Team Serra-Longo. So she's in the same room as Aljamain. She's still in the same room as Merab Dvalishvili and Matt Frivola and quite literally a bunch of excellent grapplers and excellent MMA fighters. And if you were trying to put your best foot forward and shore up the issues with your game, that's a great place to be. So I think that there's a chance that she goes out there and Goldy is stronger and more physical, and Goldy can have spots. I think she put herself in an excellent position to put up a good game plan, come out here, move your feet, keep your back off the cage, keep circling, and then use your boxing combinations. She's got better volume. She's got better boxing. She needs to keep her back off the cage, and she needs to out-grapple Goldy if need be. And whereas 3 years ago, I would have been extremely iffy on it. Yeah, I'm buying into the Serra-Longo thing. Now, is that enough for a minus 300? No. And would you put an Inoue on your top ticket or your top 2 tickets? Also, no. But yeah, it's not enough for me to just take the random underdog pick. So I will side with the favorite.
Yeah. I mean, you're buying into a lot of... We have no idea. We're assuming that there's been massive improvements for somebody this age. She's probably filled out to the 115-pound weight class. In fairness to Goldy, a lot of her worst performances are at 125 pounds. I think her best performances, the Belbita fight was at 115. And then her fight against Callie Robbins on Contender Series, where she had 142 significant strikes, was at 115. She was significantly outsized against, the fighters at 125 pounds. 115 seems like she doesn't really want to fight here, but for her frame being 5 foot, she's listed at 5'4", I believe, or 5'3", maybe even shorter, 5'1". She's not very tall. She's 5'4" that she's listed at, but a 61-inch reach. It just hasn't really worked for her up at 125 pounds. I'll side with you on Inoue, but yeah, I mean, yeah, if I just don't know what to expect from her. 3 years off at this time, I'm expecting massive improvements, and she could come out here and be like, man, minus 300, that was an absolute steal. But, you know, without seeing it actually in person, we don't have the inside track here. Nobody at Sarah Longo is, feeding us insider information or anything on it. So it's really hard to know for a fact. Credit where credit's due. Hannah Goldy has put up decent, significant strikes in those 215-pound fights. Obviously, I mentioned it earlier. 92 significant strikes and 2 takedowns against Belbita. It was relatively close / competitive there. And then the fight against Callie Robbins, 141. So, you know, in a way, hasn't exactly been a massive volume-based fighter. Maybe she could get caught here. I'll pick Inoue with you, but I don't see myself putting actual money on it. Too many question marks, bro. Finally, we've got Tamires Vidal taking on Montserrat Rendon. Minus 210 for Vidal, plus 180 for Rendon. Who do you got?
So very much so the last fight, it's like, man, the line's way off, but you're still going to end up taking Inoue. And Pat Man would be extremely disappointed. And so for this fight, I'm going to please the man. I think that this is another line. It's way too wide. It's a live underdog. And I think I'm going to take the small shot on Tamires Vidal. Now, you're not going to feel good about it. You have Tamires Vidal. But I think, live warranted the underdog shot. So let's start off with Montserrat Rendon. So why you would not ever want to bet this girl at minus 210? Couple of things. First of all, she's 34 years old making her UFC debut. She's not a young prospect by any stretch. She's got a late start into martial arts. She comes from a grappling background, but it ain't all that good. And she's still like in the young developmental side in terms of her technique and her characteristics, but she's 34. Tamires Vidal is 9 years younger. So right off the get-go, I'm getting the younger athlete versus Montserrat Ruiz. Montserrat Ruiz, Mexican fighter, has that spirit, loves to box, loves to throw up volume. And that's one good thing I do like about her. She does throw up a decent amount of volume, but there's no substance behind it. There's no real power. There's no ground game she can fall behind. There's no real defining moment. All of her fights are super close, super subjective. In fact, I thought she's lost at least 2 of them, and yet volume ever so slightly edges the way. But keep in mind, just 2 years ago, 2021, it's September of 2021. She took on Juliana Miller in a combat jiu-jitsu match in Mexico and got subbed by Juliana Miller. Now, you see how Juliana Miller fights in the UFC, and she shouldn't be in the UFC. Just 2 years ago, she's getting subbed. That doesn't matter. Just something to bring up. What does matter is her last 3 fights. Christina Pettigrew, who's a 2-1 fighter, she squeaks on a split decision. This fight less than 2 years ago, she squeaks on a split decision, okay? The very next fight against Claudia Zamora, very low level, she misses weight, comes in at 137.4. So misses weight by 1.4 pounds. Okay? So she's going to have a tough weight cut, making her UFC debut, fighting in a very intimate Apex. None of that bodes well for a minus 210 favorite, for the record. Her very next fight against Brittany Cloudy. This one's interesting to me. So I know Brittany Cloudy. I've booked her for a couple fights. Very talented fighter. She's 4-4 at the time. And I think she's currently like maybe 5-5. She's had a losing record for the majority of her career. And yet, even though Montserrat was 4-0, taking on a 4-4 Brittany Cloudy was the betting favorite. Montserrat was a plus 140 in that fight in Invicta FC. She wins a squeaky split decision in a fight that I honestly didn't think she won. I thought Cloudy won. And then she took a year off, and now she's making her UFC debut. And she's a minus 210 favorite. Interesting. We'll talk about things I have no interest in. Would be this. Are you kidding me? So she's 34. This is her debut. She's been off a year. She's gone to split decisions she probably should have lost in 2 of her last 3 fights. And she got subbed by Juliana Miller 2 years ago in a jiu-jitsu match. Yeah, none of this is a good time. Now, why are we not loading up on Vidal and just driving up the Brinks truck? Because she too is terrible. It's the lesser of 2 evils that we're trying to figure out. Now, Vidal's got to win over Eileen Perez. Of course, if you guys watch that fight, Eileen Perez dominates her for the better part of 2.5 rounds and then gets herself disqualified with an illegal knee. It's a bad performance, fairly low level. To her credit, though, she signs with LFA right after that, comes down, beats that Quayla Braga, 2nd round heel hook, looked a lot better. Here's a fighter that's only 25 years old, making improvements, looks fairly big and physical, strong. And then when she fought Ramona Pascual, she did to Ramona Pascual what you're supposed to do to Ramona Pascual and just blast her out first round, flying knee. I think there's some explosiveness to her. I think she's strong. I think she's physical. I think if she needed to get the fight to the ground, she could. Rendon's got the volume. Rendon's got the volume all day. And I think if Vidal just stands with her and gets pieced up on the outside, not even pieced up, man. She don't piece people up. She might fall behind on the numbers. She might fall behind on the strike stats. If she can mix in those takedowns. She can press her up against the cage. She can fight in the clinch. Live underdog. And literally just like the fact that I could not bet Montserrat at minus 210 is preventing me from hitting that click button. And then my hand just starts shaking. And then it goes to the other side. We're going with Vidal. Underdog play. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I have no idea what to do with this one. What I am interested in, I wanted to ask you quickly on PrizePicks. Vidal has, I mean, I've watched the Eileen Perez fight where she, there's like the illegal knee or whatever, and like that's how she gets, but she was getting absolutely dominated on the mat in that, like, I mean, it looked a lot like this studio. It was basically just like a garage, where, in wherever in Peru or wherever the hell that card was taking place, but she was getting absolutely dominated. I didn't see much of a wrestling game from her. She seems more like a striker. The Ramona Pascual finish was, just a kick to the body, just kind of like folded her early. Surprising because Pascual had shown that she was like pretty durable, but like it's just MMA being MMA. PrizePicks has her listed at 1.5 takedowns. I don't really think she's really a wrestler at all. Is she? I mean, I like the less than 1.5 takedowns. I feel like that's how I'm going to get access to this fight. Maybe you can tell, like, is Rendon just that bad that Vidal may try to wrestle here? Because I found that that's like one of the numbers that like kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me. I'm like, I don't know if Vidal, if like the idea of like shooting a double is even in her vocabulary. So I like the under 1.5 takedowns on Vidal.
I will counter with one thing. If you look at okay, so she loses to Eileen Perez, who absolutely ragdolled her until she got herself disqualified. Those are all facts. But if we want to also talk about facts, Paul Shaughnessy, Eileen Perez won her last fight in the UFC against Ashley Evans Smith, who's supposed to be a wrestler, and looked pretty good. And I got an inclining that she'll probably go on and be okay. But click on Eileen Perez because you got Vidal's Tapology app.
Yes.
Click on Eileen Perez, and it'll bring you to her Tapology. Let me know when you do.
I've got it.
Let me know her nickname.
Oh, my God.
How is Vidal supposed to have any success with someone of that nature?
Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, it's so weird. But I'll
They've never announced, they've never actually announced that in the cage, have they?
I don't think so.
Is that a new thing? How did I not see this until now? And she's affiliated with a promotion called the Goat Shed. AFP.
The Goat Shed's a great gym. It's the third best gym in Southwestern Miami.
She used to go. That's a new nickname that she has put up there, by the way. Because that's why everyone called her AFP. It was Eileen Fiona Perez, and then now all of a sudden she's Nurmagomedov. This is a new thing that's happened.
Yeah, because in the gym she's tossing people around. In fights she's looking to toss people around. The Tamires Vidal fight, she tossed Tamires Vidal around. It happens. What I'm saying is she's gonna get some class relief, hopefully taking on a Mexican striker as opposed to a Argentinian who's the Argentinian Nurmagomedov. I don't know, man. I don't know. Tough times.
It's the self-proclaimed Argentinian Nurmagomedov. In fairness. I mean, AFP is one of a kind. I'll give her that. All right, PrizePicks. The three that I like the most are Vidal less than 1.5 takedowns, Malkoun more than 3.5 takedowns, Marina Rodriguez 70.5 significant strikes. I like the over on that. Otherwise, nothing too much jumping right off the page to me. I don't mind Bryce Mitchell, 39.5 significant strikes to the over. I just think the fight probably goes the full 15, and 40 seems doable for him, but I don't know if I like it so much. For bets I've made while we're on the program here, I parlayed Battle and Malkoun around evens. And I took Tim the Dirty Bird means. Other things I'm considering will be Jake Collier. Yeah, I'll probably scoop up some of the plus 130s, plus 135s that I see out there. And yeah, otherwise that's probably it. Hit him with the PRP code.
Yeah, so in the 45 minutes since we talked about Gamrot Fiziev, I've changed my mind about 3 times. But dude, such a close fight, man. Like I think I'll go Gamrot, but live betting Gamrot is the move. And honestly, I can see Fiziev beating him for sure. For sure. Live bet's your best option, but for the sake of the show, I'll take Gamrot. Gamrot's dog number 1. We're going to go Bryce Mitchell. We're going to go Marina Rodriguez. We're going to go with Bryan Battle. Charles Jourdain, Dan Argueta, Tim Means dog number 2, Jacob Malkoun, who's probably play of the week. Jake Collier's dog number 3. We're going to go with Tamires Vidal and Mizuki Inoue. So, yeah. And that line was flipped. I kept saying during the Vidal fight, Montserrat Rendon was some big favorite, but it's flipped. So Vidal's the favorite. So that's a dog crap fight you probably don't want to invest much in. But we're going to go 3 underdogs. 3 underdogs on 11 fights. There's also a 21 fight Bellator card this Friday. So there's plenty of opportunities to chase greasy underdogs. Yeah, don't feel the need to have action on everyone. Unless it's the PRP. $1, $2, couple bucks. And yeah, hope for the best. If we can hit an 11 fight card this week, we'd be happy. And of course, 3 underdogs on 11 fights. Yeah, I don't, unless it's like a straight up dog card, which I don't get the impression it is. Hopefully we're just on the right side of the upsets.
Yeah, what I want, and you don't have to mention any of it on this program, at CJ Saftic on X. X gonna give it to you. Now that you've actually got your account back and all of that stuff, which we're all happy about. The 21 leg Bellator parlay is what, that's going to take us to financial security here and beyond, Cody. I can't see how that loses.
I honestly could not tell you how it possibly loses because I got some locks, baby. But, it's punchy kicky, and sometimes one guy gets punched in the mouth or kicked in the face, and that's all she wrote. So you can't always get them right. Contender Series last night, not a great effort. And honestly, I had the opportunity to pull it. It's like I was looking at the weigh-ins, and Jacoby Jones, he's on my top ticket. He's quite literally half the size. I was like, no way these guys are the same weight class. I just didn't do anything about it. So unfortunately, I wrote too high on him. No good. 5 fight cards, you got to force things. On 11 fight cards or 21 fight cards, take your time. Take your time. And so if all 21 guys don't come through, hopefully whoever shits in the pie is on like the 19th leg because if the rest of them hit, should be a good time. Bellator seems, and I love Bellator, don't get me wrong. Everybody shits on it. I never heard somebody ever say something nice about Bellator ever. But I like the fights. I like betting on it. I like Bellator. Honestly, I'm a fight fan. There's nothing wrong. It's the number 2 organization in the world. What's wrong with that? But they're struggling, and they're going to fold pretty soon. A 21 fight card, they're just trying to get these guys off contract as quick as they can. So writing's on the wall for them. But if we could hit a good old PRP, or at least at the very least some nice tickets on the way out, then we'll always remember the good times. Yeah.
They're like, you go to like the bottom like 5-6 fights, it's just like I've never heard of any of these people. It's a special offering that they've got going on there in Dublin, Ireland. Good on them. But yeah, obviously it sounds like somebody's buying them out, or a lot of these people are going to be looking for positions. Wouldn't be the first time that there's been like a complete change up in the MMA landscape. We've been through a whole bunch of them over the course of this program. But anyway, that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.